The movie begins with a teenage girl named Jane, who is surreptitiously smoking marijuana on a train. She is traveling to meet her aunt, where she will be temporarily residing in her house. Upon arrival, she waits at the station for a while before her aunt, named Beth, comes to pick her up. After arriving at the house, she shares a welcoming warm hug with her aunt, who enthusiastically welcomes her back. She asks if she still loves spaghetti, so that she can cook her a delicious meal. That night, while they are having dinner, her uncle, Jean-Francois, makes sure to say Jehovah's Witnesses' grace before starting the meal. The small family turns out to be quite religious. Jane also participates in their religious gatherings, albeit reluctantly. After the meal, Jane and Beth are washing the dishes when the little girl asks her aunt if her uncle ever helps her with the house chores. Beth tries to defend her husband, saying that he works and is studying to become a ministerial servant. However, Jane isn't very happy with this. She says that Beth also works, not just him. To change the subject, Beth asks Jane if she brought something good to wear to their religious meetings. Jane says that she didn't, since she was just thinking about skipping them. However, Beth isn't happy to hear this. She says that no matter what, Jane should make sure to attend the meeting. She might even come to like them. The following day, she begins her first day at a new school and quickly befriends a boy named Nate. Nate is immediately attracted to her charismatic personality. After the class ends, Jane takes a moment to breathe on a nearby bridge. She goes there to clear her mind. Sitting on the bridge, the girl smokes and listens to music. However, her little respite is turned sour when she accidentally drops her MP3 player into the water below. Exhausted and frustrated, she comes back home and throws herself onto the mattress. Just then, her aunt comes in with a dress that isn't even 1% to her liking. She eyes the dress and asks Beth if she can just attend the meeting in her jeans, but the woman refuses. With no other choice left, she reluctantly accepts it. Later that evening, she finally attends the Jehovah's Witnesses meeting wearing the dress that she clearly dislikes. All the people gathered settle down in the chairs. Soon the gathering commences with a prayer song. During this, Jane's attention is drawn to a particular girl across the room. Despite trying to avert her gaze, the girl notices her staring and smiles back. Jane shyly looks away. After the meeting commences, everybody leaves. Jane goes to sit outside the center to wait for her aunt and uncle. There, the girl from earlier approaches her. She calls out her name from behind, asking if she is Jane. Jane smiles and says that she is. The other girl, who is named Merik, asks why she is sitting there, since the women spend quite a lot of time inside after the meeting finishes. Poor Jane thought that they would be leaving right after the official gathering ended. The two engage in a brief conversation before parting ways. The next day at school, Merik approaches Jane, asking how she is doing. They converse a little, and Jane tells the girl that she is only here for a short while. After her dad passed away, her mom needed a little break. Thus, Jane came over to her aunt's house. She will go back shortly. Before parting ways once more, Merik makes sure to invite Jane over to her house on the weekend. Then she sits in her boyfriend's car and drives off. Back at home, Jane informs Beth and Jean-Francois that Merik has invited her to dinner. Delighted by the news, her uncle and aunt express their happiness. They praise Merik and her sister as wonderful girls and excitedly urge her to go. Although she smiles and is quite delighted at the outcome, she makes sure to ask them to tone it down and not be overly enthusiastic, since it is just a small dinner. On the appointed dinner night, Jane is warmly welcomed by Merik. As she enters the house, she sees Frank, Merik's father, seated on the couch, along with his son-in-law and grandson. Frank sees Jane and quickly gets up to warmly greet her and encourage her to make herself comfortable. She then goes to the kitchen to meet Merik's sister, named Amanda. Jane hands over the homemade souvenirs that Beth sent. Then the family, along with Jane, settle down to have dinner. At the dinner table, Frank leads the prayer and everyone closes their eyes. Jane discreetly opens hers, and to her surprise, finds Merik doing the same. They share a lingering gaze until the prayer concludes. After dinner, Jane and Merik retreat to Merik's room, where they admire Merik's drawings. While looking at the drawings, Jane sees the Colosseum and tells Merik that her father had planned to visit the place with her. They had also planned to go to Barcelona and Prague, among other places. Jane then asks if Merik has ever been to Europe, and the latter replies that although she didn't, her mother once did, and brought back tons of pictures. They then discuss Merik's mother's departure from the truth, a departure the family has interpreted as akin to her being deceased. The girl's expression turns sad as she tells Jane how she hasn't seen her mother since she was 6. They then share a lighthearted moment while playing the piano, until Amanda interrupts. She reminds James of the time, and the latter quickly gets up, saying that she must head home. On the way, she smokes while thinking back on Merik. Upon returning home, James finds her aunt awake. Since she is quite troubled by Merik's revelation, she confronts Beth, asking about Merik's mother's whereabouts. Beth solemnly explains that according to the truth's principles, no one is permitted to maintain contact with Merik's mother, as she was disfellowshipped upon her decision to leave the faith. James is shocked to hear this, and asks why the poor Merik has to endure the pain of considering her living mother as passed away. Beth tells her that in order to keep the truth, they have to make some sacrifices. She tells her how she wanted to have children, but for the sake of the truth, they gave up that dream until the new resolution passes. Sad for her aunt, James hugs her and drops the topic. Back at school the next day, Nate invites James to join him for an outing. He discreetly shows her the smokes he brought, enticing her. James sees the pot and is immediately attracted. The two of them go to a swing set and sit down for a smoke. There, Nate asks if she belongs to the truth and is a member of the Jehovah's Witnesses. James tells him that she isn't. During their conversation, James reveals that she moved here after her father passed away. Her mother's condition deteriorated. Thus, she had to give her some space while she copes with the loss of her husband. James' father experienced a heart attack while he was at work. Poor James was at school. There, she was summoned to the principal's office and told the saddening news. Nate shares in her worries, and the two create a special bond. Later that afternoon, Merik surprises James by taking her to a museum where Amanda's husband works as a security guard. She has stolen the keys, and the two are roaming around, looking at beautiful paintings from the 18th and 19th century. Being an art enthusiast, Merik proudly shows James a large painting depicting Jerusalem during the crucifixion. Curious, James asks if the painting is related to Jehovah's Witness beliefs, to which Merik responds in the negative. They then engage in a deeper discussion about the beliefs of Jehovah's Witnesses. Soon they part ways. The next day, James finds herself back on the bridge, immersed in reading a Jehovah's Witness magazine. The conversation from the previous day must have made her curious. Later, she finds herself back in Frank's house. There, Amanda asks her if she is baptized yet. James gets a little awkward and replies that she hasn't been yet. Despite Merik's hint at stopping herself, Amanda continues, asking if James would consider baptizing anytime soon. Frank also cuts in, saying that it would be the best decision she would ever make. Poor James is almost pressured to consider baptism and participate in field service activities. Afterward, she helps Merik with the dishes. There, Merik asks her to stay for a sleepover. Later into the night, despite James being wide awake, Merik falls asleep quickly. As she is lost in her thoughts, she suddenly feels Merik's hand wrap around her. Surprised, James assumes Merik's embrace is unintentional, but as Merik holds her more tightly, James realizes it's deliberate. Morning arrives, and Merik has awoken. She watches James sleeping peacefully. Slowly, James' eyes also flutter open, and she sees Merik wearing her glasses. The latter smiles and says that she fell asleep with them on. Smiling, she puts the glasses back on James and extends another invitation for dinner. James smiles and asks in good humor if she is still not sick of her yet. She then tells her that due to her post-school plans, she can't make it to dinner, but she will make sure to visit afterward. At school, Merik is observed abstaining from participating in the class prayer. After that, she sits down in the hallway and eats lunch by herself. It seems that Merik does not have that many friends. Later, while she is gazing out the window, she spots James and Nate. The girl seems jealous as she purses her lips, looking at the two. Meanwhile, the two head to Nate's house to hang out. There they spend time and talk about their families. James is jealous, saying that Nate can do whatever he wants, since he has so much freedom, not knowing that the poor man is being neglected by his parents. Soon, James recalls her arrangement with Merik, and she asks Nate for a ride. As they arrive at the place, Amanda witnesses James being dropped off by Nate and jumps to conclusions, asking if Nate is James' boyfriend. Before James can respond, Merik, visibly upset, interjects and silences Amanda. Back in their room, feeling jealous, Merik's emotions flare momentarily, but by the end of their conversation, they manage to laugh it off together. Once again, Merik extends an invitation for James to spend the night. In bed, Merik falls asleep soundly while James remains wide awake. Unexpectedly, as James turns toward Merik, Merik takes the initiative to gently wrap James' arm around her. In the middle of the night, Amanda wakes up and notices them in this position. Despite observing silently, Amanda intensifies her pressure on James regarding participation in field service activities. and even suggests borrowing one of Merik's dresses. Eventually, James relents to the idea of pioneering, but firmly declines wearing a dress. During their field service, Merik takes the lead in engaging with people, even though the person they approach shows little interest. Merik manages to spin the encounter positively, emphasizing that the individual accepted a citadel and made a donation. James adopts a relaxed lifestyle at Frank's house, largely influenced by Merik. They spend their time doing crafts, playing games, reading together, brushing their teeth side by side, and occasionally going hiking. While hiking, the two sit on a cliff and share their childhood memories. Sad, Merik mentions how she sometimes wishes she had no good memories with her mother, so that she wouldn't miss her much. One day, James receives a call from her mother, who informs her that she's feeling better and suggests James return home. While James is relieved to hear about her mother's improved condition, she requests to delay her return for a little longer. In the next Jehovah's Witnesses meeting, Amanda becomes increasingly aware of James' perceived negative influence on Merik. Seizing an opportunity, she deliberately intervenes by asking Beth and Jean-Francois if she can borrow James, saying that she needs a hand for assistance. Alone with James, Amanda confronts her about her actions, expressing disapproval of James' drawings in their magazine, and insinuating that James' presence is adversely affecting Merik. Additionally, Amanda indirectly encourages James to engage more in field service activities. The next day, James experiences a sense of sadness, as it marks her first birthday since her father's passing. Adding to her feelings of sadness, her mother didn't even acknowledge the occasion during their recent phone call. As she is sitting on the bridge, wallowing in grief, Nate arrives. In an effort to uplift James' spirits, Nate surprises her by purchasing a cake. Despite not being a Jehovah's Witness herself, James engages in their meetings and activities, adhering to the prohibition against celebrating birthdays, yet she enjoys the cake. While James enjoys the birthday cake, Merik and Amanda unexpectedly spot her celebrating. Upon discovering James' birthday celebration, Amanda informs Frank, who in turn informs her uncle and aunt. This results in James receiving a scolding from her aunt and uncle. Jean-Francois emphasizes the importance of respecting Merik's beliefs and suggests James engage in other community activities if she wishes to continue her association with Merik. They tell her that she is being a bad influence on Merik, and in order to remain friends, she must respect her faith. Accepting their terms, James agrees, but asserts her independence by candidly stating that if her relatives want her to leave, they should be direct about it. James' uncle's words leave her feeling uneasy. The next day at school, when Merik approaches, James asks if she is allowed to interact with her. She fears their interactions are restricted to Bible studies or Jehovah's Witnesses activities only. To James' surprise, Merik denies any such restrictions and subtly offers her a gift, a meteorite. James expresses her appreciation for the thoughtful gesture. However, she also makes sure to exclaim that she isn't supposed to give birthday gifts due to her faith. Soon after, James confides in Merik about her mother's request for her to return home. She also tells her how she is reluctant to go. Thus, she asked her mother to let her stay here for a little while longer. To James' relief, Merik shares similar feelings, saying that she too does not want her to leave. Their discussion concludes with James accepting Merik's invitation to accompany her to a Bible study. During the study, Merik subtly brushes her finger against James' thumb. Although Jamie is initially taken aback, she doesn't move her hand and almost enjoys the little touch. As the session ends, Merik offers to walk James home. Along the way, Merik surprises James by asking her to pray together, despite feeling uneasy about the request. James agrees and closes her eyes as Merik leads the prayer. Unexpectedly, as Merik finishes the prayer, she kisses James on the lips. The action is sudden, but James is not repulsed. The kiss ends as soon as it starts, and Merik acts as though it was nothing. Soon after, they part ways, and James heads to Nate's place instead of returning home. There, she confides in Nate about the incident. She finally comes out to him, telling him her preference and how she likes Merik. Nate, however, is far from surprised. He tells her how it was obvious that she liked the girl. She shares with him how she worries about their strange situation and fears that the people around them might notice. Nate expresses support and understanding for James' situation. Following their next field service outing, James attempts to hold Merik's hand, but Merik quickly withdraws hers. Instead, Merik shifts the conversation to the guys in their congregation who have shown interest in them. She suggests that the four of them should hang out together sometime, claiming her father wouldn't object to the idea. James reluctantly agrees, but inwardly feels frustrated. That night, reflecting on the incident, James becomes overwhelmed with emotion and impulsively pushes the meteorite that Merik gave her off the side table. Later, on the day of their movie night, James is picked up by Mark, Olivier, Simon, and Merik. James and Merik sit in the back seat, while the two boys sit up front. During their journey to the cinema, Merik seeks to make amends for her earlier actions by reaching out and holding James' hand. Once inside the theater, Merik discreetly signals James to accompany her to the restroom. There, Merik locks them in a cubicle, unable to contain her emotions any longer. Instructing James to turn around, Merik embraces her tightly, prompting James to reciprocate the gesture. They remain entwined for a moment before returning to their seats. On the way home, Merik continues to display affection by resting her head on James' shoulder, while the two guys remain oblivious to the unfolding intimacy. Upon dropping James off first, Merik notices that she forgot her scarf in the car. He asks the two to wait while she goes to give back the scarf. The woman quickly runs inside, following James. This leads to a moment of vulnerability where they finally give in to their overwhelming emotions. They share a passionate kiss until the sound of the car horn outside interrupts them. Merik finally parts and rushes off, while James is left breathless and reeling inside. At home, Merik is still processing the intense moment with James. Lost in thought, she imagines James in her bath until Amanda interrupts. She comes to sit beside her sister and asks about James' interaction with Simon. She tells her sister that it was just okay, since the two don't have anything in common. Their conversation then shifts to their absent mother, bringing up Merik's memories and longing. Despite their shared yearning, Amanda advises Merik against discussing their mother with their father. The next day, we see James having breakfast and preparing to go to service with Merik. Beth expresses joy over James and Merik's increased involvement in field service. Unaware of their true activities, she praises their dedication and even packs lunches for the both of them. The two hang out in their car near the sea and make out. Merik ultimately fabricates their field service report to conceal the reality of their endeavor and intimacy. While dropping Jamie off, Merik holds her hand and refuses to let go. James smiles and looks back at her, asking if she wouldn't let her go. The two lovebirds then kiss each other goodbye and finally part ways. The next day at school, James officially becomes a not-so-good influence to Merik. She approaches her while the latter is organizing her things in the locker. There, she persuades her to forego class so they may hang around. Merik consents, but only if she gets to choose what they do. They go to James' house, and there in the bathtub, Merik pretends to baptize James. After the strange ritual, the two intimately entangle once more. After making out for a while, they go out and lie down together on the bed. While conversing there, the two confess how they wish they could have been each other's first kiss. Merik then curiously asks if Jamie ever had a boyfriend. James responds to Merik's inquiry by saying that she had a connection with a female, rather than a boyfriend in the past. All of a sudden, Merik's mood changes, and she becomes a little gloomy. Despite her denial to James, Merik admits she is envious of the girl. As days pass, the two keep spending more and more time together. They go on dates, however, Merik continues to dwell on what James shared with her. One day, as the two stand before a shop, James notices Merik in a foul mood. She asks her if everything is all right, and the latter confesses that despite trying hard, she has been unable to let go of what she told her the other day. Jamie reassures her, explaining that her previous relationship with the girl is long over. They share a comforting hug, and as they lean in to kiss, unbeknownst to them, Jean-Francois unexpectedly drives by across the street. He unintentionally catches sight of them kissing on the lips. Later, when James returns home, she sees him drive past her with a strange look in his eyes. Scared, it becomes clear to James that he witnessed their intimate moment. However, as she gets inside the house, the atmosphere isn't awkward. Beth sees the scared Jamie and asks if she is all right. The latter breathlessly replies that she is fine and rushes off to her room. It turns out that Jean-Francois hasn't informed Beth yet, and he won't be home until late evening. The next day at school, Jane discovers a letter in her locker from Merik instructing her to meet at the museum. There, she finds out that Jean-Francois arrived home late the previous night because he discussed James and Merik's relationship with Frank. Concerned that Merik might face repercussions within their community, James urges her to accompany her when she returns home to her mother. Despite Merik's desire to go with James, she reassures her that she won't face expulsion from the truth. Merik promises to address the situation with her family, and they share a goodbye kiss. As another day swiftly passes, Jean-Francois insists that James accompany them to the meeting, as it will be his first time speaking. During the singing portion, Merik's family unexpectedly enters the room. Later, Jean-Francois invites Frank to speak, who shares a Bible verse before surprising everyone by announcing the engagement of Merik and Mark Olivier. Upon hearing the announcement, a heartbroken James hastily exits the hall, leaving Beth and Jean-Francois visibly surprised. Meanwhile, Merik notices James' absence from her seat. Jane goes home in tears, but after some time, she finds herself at Frank's house. Although she doesn't speak a word, Amanda informs her that Merik is upstairs. Jane bypasses Frank and enters Merik's room. Contrary to Jane's assumptions, Merik clarifies that the marriage was her own decision, and that nobody pressured her into it. She explains that she did it with the belief that in the new system, she and James would be together forever. A belief that James has never shared. Despite James' encouragement for Merik to leave with her, Merik refuses, expressing her love for James. They share a poignant kiss, but when Merik asks James to stay, James declines. The next morning, Nate bids James farewell, presenting her with one of his collectibles before they share a hug. On their way to the train station, Beth offers comfort to James, reassuring her of her unconditional love despite everything. Upon their arrival at the station, they share a tight hug, bidding each other farewell. Years pass, and James moves forward with her life. When she returns to visit her aunt again, it's Merik who picks her up. James meets Merik's child, Luca, named after the Italian city Lucca that James had expressed a desire to visit. Taking the scenic route, Merik stops at their favorite spot and shares the postcards James sent to her aunt, indicating that Beth kept Merik informed about James' life. Arriving at James' aunt and uncle's house, James expresses concern for Merik's well-being, prompting Merik to admit that she's not okay and that she thinks about James all the time. James reciprocates the sentiment. When she tries to remove her seatbelt, Merik stops her with tears streaming down her eyes. The movie concludes with the pair signaling their enduring bond. Life may go on, but the heart wants what it wants.